What happens when royalty meets reality? Live on British morning television. When Prince Harry took his seat on the iconic red sofa of Good Morning Britain, he expected charm, courtesy, and maybe a few carefully worded questions. What he didn't expect was confrontation. It started smoothly. The polite greetings, the practiced smiles. But beneath the studio lights, tension gathered like a storm waiting to break. In just a few exchanges, the air turned from warm to electric. Susanna Reid, a journalist known for her composure, sensed it the moment he walked in. His handshake was quick, his posture guarded. The prince wasn't here to chat. He was here to defend. "Your Royal Highness," she began warmly. Harry's reply came cool and clipped. "Pleasure's all yours, I'm sure." A ripple moved through the studio, but Susanna pressed on, steady as ever. "You've spoken about your complicated relationship with the British press. Can you help viewers understand that frustration?" Harry leaned back, tone edged with weariness. "Or was it disdain? I think it's fairly obvious, isn't it? The press made a sport of my life, my wife's life, and everyone acts like we should just smile and take it." Susanna nodded, professional as always. "That must have been difficult. Still, many would say public attention comes with being—" "That's a lazy excuse," Harry cut in sharply. "No one deserves to be hunted because of a last name." The room went still. Cameras rolled. The silence stretched. Susanna adjusted slightly, voice calm but firm. "Of course. But when you choose to share your story through interviews and documentaries, doesn't that also invite interest?" Harry's jaw tensed. "So now it's my fault for wanting to tell my truth?" "Not at all," she replied evenly. "I'm asking if openness sometimes brings its own scrutiny." He gave a bitter laugh. "You journalists are all the same. Dressing accusations up as questions, smiling while you twist the knife." Susanna's tone never wavered. "There's no knife here, only curiosity." But Harry wasn't done. "Your viewers, the ones you spoon-feed gossip to, they don't want truth. They want drama," she met his glare with calm poise. "Our viewers are thoughtful and informed, which is exactly why they're watching this conversation." It was no longer an interview. It was a duel. Intellect versus emotion. Poise versus pride. When she finally said, "Respect goes both ways, Your Highness," Harry paused. The air thickened. "Respect is earned," he muttered. Susanna tilted her head. "Then perhaps you'll find we've both earned it." The producer's hand rose. 2 minutes to break. But no one was breathing normally anymore. The lights glowed hotter. The words hung heavier. Royalty had met reality. And for once it wasn't a fairy tale. He crossed one leg over the other and muttered under his breath, "Let's hope this isn't another ambush." Susanna's smile flickered. Poised, deliberate, and razor-edged. The kind of smile that belonged to someone who'd seen tempests behind studio lights. "No ambushes here," she said smoothly. "Just conversation, though I can't promise comfort," Harry scoffed. "Comfort's overrated." "Not on morning television," she replied, still calm, still composed. "But I'll take honesty over comfort any day." The cue light blinked red. They were live again. Polite applause rippled through the audience, unaware that what they were really watching wasn't a chat. It was the quiet beginning of an on-air earthquake. As the clapping faded, tension took its place. The red sofa suddenly looked less like furniture and more like a chessboard. 2 players, 2 minds, 1 misstep away from checkmate. Susanna leaned forward, her voice as soft as silk, but her eyes told a sharper story. Alert, assessing, ready. Across from her, Prince Harry reclined, arms folded, the picture of practiced defiance. "Welcome back to Good Morning Britain," Susanna began, her tone effortless. "We're joined this morning by Prince Harry to discuss his recent public remarks and the media's role in shaping his story." She turned toward him. Before the break, you spoke about feeling hunted by the press. Do you believe there's any way to rebuild that relationship? Or is that bridge completely burned? Harry gave a dry, almost humorless laugh. Rebuild? You can't rebuild something that was never built on trust. Susanna nodded, thoughtful but steady. Fair enough. But some people might say your relationship with both the press and the public has become complicated. A few of your recent comments have been seen as dismissive toward those who— There it is! Harry cut in sharply, leaning forward. That tone, that little moral lecture disguised as a question. Susanna blinked once but didn't flinch. I'm simply trying to clarify. You're trying to frame me. He shot back, just like every journalist before you. Pretending to understand, but really just looking for a way to make your audience feel superior. The audience shifted uneasily. Somewhere behind the cameras, a sound tech coughed. Susanna clasped her hands gently, her professionalism unbroken. I can assure you that's not my intention, she said. I'm here to have a balanced conversation, not a confrontation. Then stop twisting everything I say, Harry snapped. Her tone cooled, not icy but tempered steel. I'm not twisting your words, she replied. I'm asking for clarity. That's my job. Harry smirked, voice dripping with sarcasm. Your job. Right. You mean pretending to be the nation's moral compass while serving gossip for breakfast? Susanna's lips parted slightly, not in shock, but in restrained disappointment. That's quite a statement, she said evenly. Do you really believe that's what journalism is? I believe it's what this show is, he said flatly. You sit here with your perfect hair and your polite smile, pretending you're above it all. But you're not. You're part of the same machine that tore my family apart. A quiet fell over the studio. Her co-host stayed still. The control room murmured frantic notes into headsets, but no one dared interrupt. Susanna took a breath, steady but slow. I'm sorry you feel that way, truly. But I think most viewers would agree that this show has always given guests a fair platform, including you this morning. Harry let out a humorless chuckle. Fair? You've interrupted me 3 times already. I can't finish a sentence without being challenged. That's not interruption, she said softly. That's engagement. Oh, engagement, he repeated mockingly. You love that word, don't you? Engagement, empathy, enlightenment. The buzzwords of people who think being polite excuses being manipulative. A quiet gasp rippled through the audience. Susanna's grip on her notes tightened, but her tone remained calm. The kind of calm that can only come from iron discipline. Prince Harry, she said gently. I'm sorry if this feels confrontational, but you agreed to come here to share your views. That's what I'm inviting you to do. I am sharing them, he snapped. Maybe you should try listening for once. I am listening, she said evenly. To every word. Harry gave a short, bitter laugh. You journalists always say that. But you don't listen for understanding. You listen for contradictions. She leaned forward slightly, voice low but unwavering. That's not true. I've spent 20 years listening to people. Victims, leaders, families who've lost everything. Listening is what I do. Harry stared at her, a pause heavy with decision, then said coldly, You've made a career out of other people's pain, including mine. And there it was, the accusation he'd been circling since the cameras rolled. The air thickened, like the space before thunder. Susanna's composure faltered for half a heartbeat before she recovered. With respect, Your Royal Highness, she said carefully. You've chosen to share much of your private life publicly, through books, interviews, and documentaries. You've taken control of your narrative. Harry's eyes flashed. And that threatens you, doesn't it? He said, his voice rising. Because now I don't need you to tell my story. tell my story anymore." Harry finished, his tone slicing through the tension like glass. Susanna inhaled slowly, keeping her voice steady. "It doesn't threaten me, Harry. It just disappoints me. How quickly a conversation turns into an accusation." Harry crossed his arms, leaning back. "Maybe you just don't like being challenged." "On the contrary," she replied, her composure like steel under silk. "I welcome challenge. I just prefer it without contempt." A stillness fell over the room. The camera instinctively zoomed in. Harry smirked. "Contempt is earned, Susanna." "And so is respect," she answered softly. The air thickened. What had started as an interview now felt like a duel. Susanna lowered her gaze briefly to her notes, then looked back up. "Would you like to continue discussing your foundation's work?" she asked, trying to steer the storm back to calmer waters. "If you can manage not to twist that too," Harry muttered. "I'll do my best." "Don't bother," he said with a bitter half-smile. "You've already decided what story you're going to tell." "That's not how I work," she replied evenly. "Of course it is," he shot back. "You ask your clever little questions, act calm and rational, then paint me as angry, defensive, ungrateful. Whatever fits your narrative." Susanna paused, letting the silence cut deeper than words. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, deliberate. "If I wanted to frame you that way, Your Highness, I wouldn't have to lift a finger." The audience gasped. Even Harry blinked, caught off guard by the precision of her response. Susanna straightened, her poise unshaken. "Shall we move on to your charity's new initiative for veterans?" Harry hesitated, his jaw tight. "Fine, if you can manage not to make that sound self-serving too." "Let's try," she said with a calm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The interview continued. Technically, words were exchanged, questions answered. But the warmth was gone. The red sofa no longer looked inviting. It looked like a battlefield. And though the sun climbed higher over London, inside the studio the light felt cold. Then Susanna spoke again, carefully, compassionately. "Let's talk about your late mother, Princess Diana. You've said before her experiences shaped your view of the media." "Stop right there," Harry cut in sharply. "You people never miss a chance to bring her up, do you?" Susanna's expression softened. "It's not for drama. It's to understand your perspective." "No," he said, his voice hardening. "It's to get a headline. Don't act like you care about my mother. You just want the clip that trends." The air turned heavy. Even the audience stopped breathing. "Harry," Susanna said quietly, "I understand this is deeply personal. I lost my father at a young age too." "Don't compare yourself to me," he interrupted coldly. "You don't know what it's like to live under a microscope. You can walk outside without cameras dissecting your life. I couldn't even attend my mother's funeral without being watched." Pain rippled through his voice. Real, raw, but burning too hot to touch. "You're right," Susanna said gently. "None of us can imagine that. But by sharing your story now, aren't you trying to help people understand, not push them away, alienate them?" Harry gave a bitter laugh. "I just want them to stop pretending to understand. You included." "I'm not pretending," she said softly. "I'm trying to—" "Don't try," he snapped. "You're not here to help me. You're here to make good television." The crew froze. In the control room, a producer whispered, "Oh, God." Susanna's tone stayed measured but firm. "Good television happens when people speak honestly and respectfully. I can't control your honesty, but I can ask for respect." Harry leaned forward, eyes flashing. "Respect?" He gave a dry, humorless laugh. "That's rich, coming from the same press that chased my mother to her death." Susanna's lips parted slightly, not in defense, but in sorrow. The silence that followed wasn't scripted. It was human, and for the first time all morning neither of them spoke. Susanna's eyes flashed, her patience finally thinning. That tragedy, she said, her voice trembling with restrained emotion, changed how the entire world sees media responsibility, but to imply that every journalist bears guilt for it. You do, Harry cut in coldly. Every one of you. You feed the same monster, just with better lighting. The words landed like a slap. The studio went silent. For the first time, Susanna's voice lost its velvet and turned to steel. Be careful, Your Royal Highness, she said, each syllable measured and deliberate. Words like that carry weight. I won't sit here and let the hard work of honest journalists be equated with tragedy. Harry crossed his arms, smirking. Defensive, are we? Human, she corrected firmly. The air grew dense. Even the cameras hesitated to pan. Susanna adjusted her earpiece, a subtle reminder that they were still live, and forced herself to keep her tone professional. Let's turn to something constructive, she said. Your work with mental health charities. Typical. Harry interrupted again. When it gets uncomfortable, you run to the safe topic. That's not journalism. That's cowardice. That was the breaking point. Susanna's pen, which had been resting between her fingers, hit the desk with a soft tap. She looked at him directly now. No filters. No pretense. Her eyes were calm but burning with clarity. I've given you every chance to speak openly, she said, her voice low but unshakable. But what you're doing now, belittling this platform, this team, and our viewers, isn't conversation. It's contempt. Harry blinked, caught off guard by the firmness in her tone. Excuse me? You've spent 20 minutes dismissing every question, mocking every effort at dialogue, and insulting everyone who doesn't agree with you. Susanna continued. That's not bravery, Harry. That's arrogance. A stunned silence followed. Even the crew froze. You invited me here, Harry said finally, his voice low but simmering. Yes, Susanna replied, unflinching. And I expected a man who could handle a conversation without turning it into a tantrum. His eyes flared. A tantrum? You think this is a tantrum? I think, she said evenly. You came here looking for a fight. And I don't do fights, Harry. I do journalism. The audience murmured quietly. For the first time, they saw the calm morning host draw a line and refused to step back from it. Harry stood abruptly, anger flashing in his eyes. This is absurd. You should be ashamed of yourself. No, Susanna said, her voice sharp but composed. What's shameful is mistaking accountability for attack. Her producer's voice whispered urgently through her earpiece. Cut to break? Susanna raised one finger. Not yet. She turned back to Harry. Let's be clear. You're welcome to share your story here. You're not welcome to insult this platform or the people watching it. Harry leaned forward, his voice rising. You think I need your platform? I've spoken to Oprah, Anderson Cooper. This show is nothing compared to them. Susanna didn't blink. Then perhaps, she said, her tone turning to glass. You should have gone there instead. The audience gasped. Even Harry froze, humiliated, furious, and visibly unraveling. Go to commercial now, the director mouthed from behind the glass. But the damage was done. Harry pointed at her, his hand trembling. You'll regret this, he said. Susanna met his glare calmly. We'll be right back. The red light went dark. The feed cut to commercials. Behind the cameras, the silence was thunderous. Everyone knew. Something historic had just happened. When the show returned, the energy was unrecognizable. Gone was the warmth of morning television. What remained was something colder, sharper, painfully real. Susanna sat perfectly composed. Harry was still there, but barely. His jaw was tight. His hands gripped his knees like anchors. Welcome back, Susanna began. We're continuing our conversation with Prince Harry. Oh, yes, he said with a dry smirk. Because heaven forbid we end a royal scandal early, right? It's not about scandal, Susanna replied quietly. It's about understanding. That's what journalism is. Dialogue. No, he said. It's performance, and you're the star. The calm face of British hypocrisy. The audience murmured in discomfort. Harry, she warned gently, if you came here to insult rather than discuss, we can end this. End it, he laughed bitterly. When things get uncomfortable, you just shut it down. Classic. No, Susanna said, leaning forward. That's called maintaining standards. Standards? He sneered. The word people use when they're too scared to tell the truth. The truth, she said, is that we gave you a platform, and you used it to belittle everyone on it. He folded his arms. Because you don't listen. You already have your story. The spoiled prince, the angry royal, the ungrateful son. No one's writing your story for you, Harry, she said softly. You're doing that yourself. The line hit like a gavel. The studio froze. Even the floor manager stopped breathing. You twist everything, Harry said finally, voice shaking. It's all a trap. There's no trap, she replied. Only accountability, something you seem to resent. I don't need accountability from you, he snarled. And yet, she said, you came here to be heard. That requires respect, something that disappears the moment you're challenged. Don't patronize me, he barked. I'm not, she said firmly. I'm reminding you this is a conversation, not a coronation. He scoffed. You really think you're clever, don't you? The calm journalist taking on the angry prince. Your viewers will love it. My viewers, she said coldly, love honesty, not theatrics. That was the final spark. Harry stood abruptly. This is what you wanted. A spectacle. A viral clip. You're doing that yourself, she said quietly. I'm being real, he snapped. Real doesn't mean rude, she countered. It doesn't mean entitled. It means accountable. You don't get it, he shouted. You're part of the system that destroyed my family. Stop, she said, voice firm, cutting through the air. Just stop, he froze. This isn't therapy, Susanna continued. You came here to talk about your work. But all you've done is attack. I've hosted this show for years, and never once has a guest shown this level of disrespect. Harry's jaw dropped. You're kicking me out? I'm asking you, she said calmly, to either continue this interview with respect or leave. Do you know who I am? He demanded. Yes, she said. You're a guest on my show, and right now you're out of line. Harry laughed bitterly. You'll regret this. No, Susanna replied softly. I won't. He looked around, waiting for someone to intervene. No one moved. The studio was frozen in quiet disbelief. Fine, he said, ripping off his mic. I don't need this. I don't need you. The Velcro snapped. The microphone hit the sofa. Good luck with your standards, he spat before storming off. The door slammed. The sound echoed. Susanna exhaled slowly, adjusted her notes, and looked into the camera. Well, she said with a small smile, that was unexpected. We'll take a short break and return with something much calmer, I promise. The audience erupted, some clapping, some whispering. Behind the scenes, the crew was stunned. He really just walked out? One whispered. Wow. Another muttered. Susanna sat quietly, a faint smile returning. Her producer leaned in. You okay? I'm fine, she said simply. Just another morning on television. But everyone knew it wasn't. That was the morning Good Morning Britain made history. The day a prince stormed off and a journalist refused to bow. Clips went viral within minutes. Viewers called it the royal meltdown. Others called it the moment Britain found its voice. But Susanna didn't gloat. The next morning she sat on that same red sofa. Same seat, same smile, same poise. Because real professionalism isn't about silence or submission. It's about standing tall, even when the crown across from you slips. And that day, the world learned something unforgettable. Class doesn't come with a crown. It comes with composure.